minutes, but we'll get started because we've got some excellent stuff to get through today. So my name is Rob Snaith. I'm going to be your moderator today for the CCRI CSO webinar called Building Circular Communities, the Role of Circular Libraries. So what we're going to go through today is, this is the agenda here. So we have a quick introduction from myself on the overall principles of what circular library is and how they enact the principles of the circular economy in general, and then handing over to the most important part of today's session. We have two excellent guest speakers. We have Ranjit from the Library of Things in the UK and Cynthia representing the Smart Library of Things in Norway as well. So we'll hear from them on how their libraries have been set up and some of the challenges that they've had and how things work in practice for them. And then we'll have an interactive question and answer session for any questions for either Ranjit or Cynthia or myself, and just a general open discussion. And then we'll wrap up with some closing remarks and some links for other resources that you might find useful going forward. So we'll move on. Oops, sorry, we'll go back there. So just some house rules for the session today. Please keep cameras and microphones off unless you're speaking. So when we get to the question and answer session, we can throw over to you if you raise your hands and you have a question that you'd like to ask in person. Otherwise, you can use the chat option and we'll be able to filter those through questions as we go as well. If there are any technical problems, please send an email to the CCRI CSO communications@ecoris.com and we'll be able to sort those as we go. And just a note that the session is going to be recorded today and it will be published on the CCRI website. So if you do prefer to remain anonymous, probably best to not post questions in the chat or kind of speak up on the camera through raising your hand. If anybody does have any questions that they or issues or points that they'd like to talk about, then again you can email us separately. We'll be always happy to pass those questions on to our guest speakers if that's relevant, or just have that discussion outside of today's session as well. So those are our rules. So just move slides on. So what we're hoping, or what we will be covering today, is to help you just get an understanding of the high-level concept and the role of circular libraries in the wider circular economy transition, some insights into the impact that they can have, the challenges that they can face, and the success factors that are important to try to build into developing a circular library approach. We'll have a brief discussion around connections between circular libraries and other aspects of the circular economy and broader strategies, and then we'll be able to talk around some opportunities for replication and adaptation to individual contexts as well. So before we get started, we want to just ask a quick question of you guys, which will be through Slido. And what we want to know is, when you hear the term circular libraries, what is the first word that comes to your mind, basically? So if we can launch the Slido now, please, Victoria. Is that going? I don't see that going. Ah, yes, there we go. Sorry. So yeah, so if you follow the link at Slido there, we're just keen to understand what you think of when you hear circular libraries. If the Slido's not working for you, you can pop it in the chat menu as well, and we can go through that. A few coming in there. Sharing economy is nice. Waste reduction, culture is a lovely one. I like that. So it's a good aspect. Certainly, what we're going to be talking about. Community, the local aspect is fabulous. Yeah. A couple more coming in. Sharing economy seems to be the key one, certainly. Swapping as well, swap shops. It's the books that's come up there is an interesting one as well, because it's the same it's the same idea as a classic library. Basically, it's in so many aspects of the circular economy, the ideas that we talk about aren't particularly new ideas. They're just a return to older, more sustainable ways of doing things. So it's a nice aspect of it. We've got a couple more coming in as well. Inclusivity, access to materials and items. That's a good one. Tools as well, certainly. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Oh, got one more coming by the looks of it. Innovation as well. Yeah, that's really good. I like that. I like that. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. That's really good. And I think the aspect of the sharing economy that's obviously come up as the most common one there, I think is a perfect way to kind of to kick into the main aspect of what we're going to be talking about today, basically. So we'll move on now, and just to have a bit of a chat about the general ideas around what a circular library is, really. From the responses on the engagement there, I think most people already have a good idea of the kind of the key principles that we're going to be talking about today. But in general, a circular library is usually a community-driven initiative which enables people to borrow, share, or access resources that they might not have access to outside of buying new ones. So it's the types of things that lots of people probably use, but not all of the time. So in libraries of things, for example, in the example that we've got there, items such as tools, as came up in the Slido, camping gear, party supplies, that kind of thing. So rather than having them either be for party supplies, for example, either just be purchased and used once and then thrown away, or for things like tools or camping gear be purchased and used very infrequently and sat gathering dust in a cupboard somewhere for the rest of the time. It's just a way to keep those things in a higher intensity of use and get better value from the materials that go into them, obviously. And then circular material libraries is the other kind of main division, I suppose. And there's lots of nuance and variations between these two that we've got on screen here, and our guests will talk about some of that in their presentations as well. But circular material libraries can provide people like designers or craftspeople, makers, other community members access to discarded or surplus materials, basically. So kind of wood, plastics, textiles for creative kind of reuse or practical reuse for furniture, that kind of thing as well. So there's two kind of broad categories of circular libraries that we talk about. And why are they important? What's the value of a circular library? Well, there's lots of different values, really. So they can promote sharing and reuse, so to encourage a borrow or reuse rather than purchase mindset, thereby potentially extending product lifetimes, reducing waste, also extending or increasing the intensivity of use of materials as well. Resource efficiency is a large one, obviously helping communities make better use of their existing resources, reducing the need for new production. Community resilience is a big one, so they're a really strong way to foster social connections and the resilience that comes with those by building networks of trust and collaboration within communities. And they're the phrase we've used there is a low barrier entry point, so they can offer an accessible way for citizens and organizations to begin to engage with the circular economy principles in everyday life. So to begin to potentially build that mindset shift that we really need if circularity is going to scale up to the levels that we'd like it to, certainly at CCRI, obviously. Just the mindset shift of how we value things, our perception of value. And circular libraries are a really kind of simple, instinctive way to begin kind of changing the way that people kind of think and behave around the items that, like I say, that are likely to use. Everybody's likely to use at some point, but not all the time. And they can also be a really good way to support local authority circular economy action plans as well. So they can be a practical component to those systemic solutions that the local and regional governments might like to be working towards. So how do they work? What do they do? It's a classic idea of circularity replacing the traditional linear business model. So rather than buying stuff, using it and discarding it, a circular library can help to kind of cut out those two aspects that we're not too keen on by developing ways of borrowing, returning them to the library, and then the kind of the library governance setup structure can maintain and repair those items so they can be used in a continual cycle. And at the very core of that is the community that's built up around all of these activities and the connections that are made, as I mentioned in the previous slide there. So we'll move on again. And then how do they link to other potential solutions and ideas? So circular libraries can really complement other circular initiatives, so things like material marketplaces, repair hubs, and repair training sessions, sharing platforms, and they can create a real systemic impact on local communities, so they can all work together. The large aspect of what is required to make circularity successful at large scale, but building from that smaller scale, is the building of networks to encourage that atmosphere of collaboration, basically. And circular libraries are a fantastic building block as part of that. And that systemic impact, like we say there, they can really begin to embed that kind of sharing and reusing mindset into daily life, and help cities and regions to move towards a more sustainable, resilient, and resource efficient system as we've got there. So they're a really key part of a key part of any wider move for a local region towards a more sustainable, more circular way of doing things, and really getting more value from the materials that either exist already, materials and resources that either exist already within that local community or that flow into that community as well. Again. So that's it for me. Like I said, a very kind of quick, high-level summary of the principles. So the key takeaways: circular libraries are a practical, low-barrier solution to begin to embed circular economy principles into community life, and they can offer environmental, social, and economic benefits. And there are lots of different ways of building a circular library system, lots of models and approaches, and they need to be flexible to local context. And to talk about some of those different ways, I'm going to pass over now to our guest speakers, and we will start off first of all with Ranjit Singh from the Library of Things in the UK. Ranjit, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob, and lovely to be here, and thank you everybody for making the time to join us. So I'm going to start off with giving you a little bit of history, how we started. It was started by three women, Rebecca, Emma, and Sophia, 10 years ago.
Ranjit, I think you're muted.
Okay.
Okay.
So did anybody get the beginning of that? I just said that lovely to be here, and thanks for making the time to join us this morning. So I'm going to start off by just telling you a little bit about how we started. It was started by three women, Rebecca, Emma, and Sophia. And they started off in a shipping container in a car park in South London. It was a volunteer project. They had no ambitions beyond this. And they got so much interest from around the world. And by the way, they were actually inspired by libraries of things they'd seen in Berlin and Canada. And they were inspired by that and realized that the people around them all needed tools, and they needed good quality tools, and people were ending up buying, hopefully nobody's here from Amazon, but buying rubbish from Amazon, which usually breaks after a few uses. And after running that for 5 years, they decided to give up their full-time jobs and start a self-service, locker-based library in a South London library. And today we have 23 communities using our software. 21 of those locations we run and operate ourselves. And let me move on to the next slide. So I think one of the things that we want to cover today is how do you make sharing replicable, scalable, and sustainable. So we have solutions where you have sharing boxes, and our sharing stations range from 40 boxes to 20. And they have a variety of items in them, from carpet cleaners to drills and saws, and more fun things like waffle makers and slow cookers. And we have found that our success has been really based on our partnerships with municipalities in London. There are 32 municipalities in London, and we're in 17. And the municipalities are key for funding the sharing boxes, the capital costs, and they're also key in getting the message out to the communities. They have the largest voice in the community, and we collaborate with them quite closely in terms of marketing and outreach to the citizens of a municipality. And I will move on to just talk about how do we make things replicable and the network effect. So like I said, Rebecca, Emma, and Sophia didn't start off with an ambition to build a network across London. It was all incremental. We learned from each opening. We learned from our mistakes. And maybe I can talk about some of the migration we did from the volunteer-led shipping container. When we were in the shipping container, it was also operated with donated tools. And the problem with donated tools is great on one hand. The community feels some sense of ownership, but the quality of those donated tools varied greatly. So we had to actually invest a lot of time in repairing those tools, making them serviceable for people to use and safe for them to use, which took a lot of time and resource. And the other thing that we found with donated tools, you have multiple brands. You could have 6, 7, 8 brands of carpet cleaners, 6, 7 brands of drills. And that meant when you repaired them, you had to go to multiple suppliers to find all those parts, which again is organizationally and administratively cumbersome. So when we migrated to the lockers and the sharing boxes, we made some big decisions. We decided that when we open a sharing station, we only use new tools. We also decided that we were going to only use 3 to 4 brands. So most of our drills are Bosch, our carpet cleaners are Karcher, and our gardening tools are Stihl. So that means a number of things. It gives you lots of operational efficiencies. Firstly, you only have to buy spare parts from 3 or 4 companies. It also means your storage costs are lower because you're buying fewer parts. And thirdly, which we didn't realize until we got into our 3rd or 4th location, it's much easier to train your technicians on 3 or 4 brands as opposed to 20, 30, 40 brands. And another advantage that we found is that our technicians have now built a real body of knowledge around these brands. So they can actually tell Bosch the best way to repair a drill, the best way to maintain it. In fact, we've had meetings with brands like Karsha, and our technicians tell them to design their carpet cleaners in a different way so they will stay in circulation a lot longer. Unfortunately, they don't listen to all our suggestions, but it is making small baby steps to making implementation scalable. And another important factor that we found is that having one brand name. So all our locations are operated under the Library of Things brand name. That makes marketing easier. It makes brand recognition and awareness much quicker. So I think those are all the key factors that I would suggest if you are going to embark on this journey of creating sharing stations. Try, if you have the funds, try and open more than one, because one isn't going to change the world. We've found the more stations that we've opened across London, the awareness has grown exponentially. So I think in London, we have great brand recognition. So if you have a location near you, you will know about it. Most of our borrowers come from within a 15-minute walk of the sharing station. And in one municipality in London, every citizen is less than 15 minutes away from a sharing station. So I think that's me. And I look forward to your questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ranjit. That's fabulous. We have had one question in the chat, and I think you've touched on it really. But what advice would you give to someone starting a similar initiative, which I think you have touched on? But if you want to say anything more about that, then there's a couple of others. I've got a question myself, and then I see there's one more come in there as well that we've got time to pick up just now.
Sure. I think you said earlier it's context. What is your funding like? Lockers are more expensive. But we've also community groups use our software. But when you have community groups, you need it to be staffed. And usually if it's volunteer-led, that's okay. So the reason that we migrated to lockers was the labor cost of staffing a location. So that's why we moved to a self-service solution.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. And then question in the chat from Katharina there, what about insurance in case of damaged or not returned items? How do you approach that and kind of retain some security in that way, I suppose, of the materials that you have?
It's a great question. It's a question we get asked all the time. The number I can give you is that 0.017 of our items don't get returned. So it's a very, very small number. I could do a mic drop and walk away with that stat, but usually it's the most expensive item that doesn't get returned. But on insurance, unfortunately, insurance companies won't insure you for things that aren't returned. They will only insure you for things that have actually been stolen, which actually means somebody forcing open the locker and taking the item away. But in 5 years of operating in London, that's not happened once.
Okay, so there's an element of risk there, obviously, but I think the principle of the kind of the sharing economy hopefully will do a lot to alleviate that risk as well. Just the kind of the community building aspect that the Libraries of Things can or aim to try to build.
We do that. You have to do that before launch. So we work quite closely with the municipalities. The municipality hold webinars or face-to-face meetings to talk to the community, and also what we do, we gather all the people that have been in touch with us, lots of green groups, environmental groups. So when we launch a location, we bring all those groups together. And launch is very key. It's really important at that time to build your mailing list. So that's one of your key marketing tools, because people sign up around the launch of an excitement. Fewer people will launch, 6 months after you've opened. So we really drive that part of our marketing effort around launch time.
Yeah, so that engagement is a really big part of the planning before actually developing into operation. That's really interesting. Thank you. And another question is, how do you handle growth financially? So what's the money situation behind what you do, and how you've expanded so impressively to 23 locations in the city?
Yeah, I had no white hairs, I had no wrinkles when I started working at the Library of Things. So it's a constant challenge. Yes, the more locations we open, the more revenue we earn. But currently, we're not covering our operating costs. Those are covered by grants, and we have some impact investors. So we think over the next 2-3 years, we will become self-sustaining. Behavior change takes time, and that's why we've seen having the network effect of having multiple locations. We're seeing borrowing rates increase year on year.
Excellent, thank you. And then I think the one question I had before we pass over to Cynthia to hear her presentation is, you mentioned engagement with manufacturers of the I think it was the tools in particular you were referring to there, and you said it's not always very successful, they don't always listen, but it's a really a nice kind of bit of inspiration really to the aspect and the kind of the scale that you are beginning to build is giving you a little bit of influence, hopefully. So like I say, you mentioned they weren't always successful, but I was wondering if there were any kind of small success stories on that front that you're able to share.
I suppose the small success is actually getting them to have a conversation with us and listen to us. But I don't want to take too much credit. Their model is still to sell you things, even though they have people in their sustainability departments who really believe in the Library of Things. Their business model is still very much to, sell you as much as possible. We have lots of manufacturers and retailers knocking on our door, and when they realize how challenging it is to actually build a rental operation, they kind of walk away. But we're hoping that, as time goes on and we show that rental is a really viable option, some of them will bring it into their operations. They are doing it. Some of the major retailers are doing it around clothing. Like Marks and Spencer's in the UK, you can rent an evening dress, but it doesn't really get to the substance of the problem, does it?
No, of course, absolutely. So a foot in the door, I think, is the phrase at the moment. Okay, and one last question now from Katharina. Are the users that you have mostly repeat users, the same users, or newcomers? And are you able to give us any rough numbers on users of the service within the last year, say?
It varies across locations. I think we have between 30 and 40,000 users. People only come to us 2.5 times a year. You don't need to clean your carpet every week. You're not going to be drilling things every week. So that's why it's really important that you build up your mailing list right at the beginning. So even in our mature sites, we're getting new users all the time. So it's varied across locations, and it depends when they opened.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Excellent. So yeah, thank you everybody for your questions. Keep them coming for Anjit if you think of anything else as we're progressing. But now we shall pass over to Cynthia to hear about the Library of Things in Norway, the Smart Library of Things in Norway. Apologies. Cynthia, over to you.
Thank you, Rob. There we go. So today I'm going to share with you how over a decade of putting theory into practice has taken our Library of Things and become a circular learning arena. What's interesting here is I've been a practitioner, researcher for well over a decade in this space, and I'm deeply invested in my own community. We started with food systems, but we clearly saw that things were the elements that could really bring people together. We started our Library of Things nearly a decade ago. And when we first started, we ran into a lot of the challenges that many did in the same space. We decided it had to happen. It was passionate souls in our own local community who said, how can we make this happen? We decided to look into what was happening internationally because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. We've followed the space for quite some time. And we started out actually in a 40-foot container on a sort of squatting on a military compound, not in a very close location. But we got working on how do we solve a lot of the problems that are the practical problems of running a library of things. Some of the things that many will discuss: how do you get seen out there, or what do you do regarding maintenance? What happens when things break?
Cynthia,
Yes.
can I just come in? Are you able to turn your camera on, please, just so we can see you while you're talking?
Apologies, there we are.
Thank you. Cheers.
And so through this library of things, it took us quite a while in the early days to get the different stakeholders in our community to understand what we were working towards. And that can be one of the challenges. But now that we've seen, as the circular economy has become a global megatrend, that municipalities are understanding it and individuals are trying to find solutions. But something that we have seen over the years is that you can put together all of the practical solutions and all of the structural solutions. But if you don't look at what are the cultural levers for systems change, you're not going to succeed and get to a sustainable solution that is really systemic. And so instead of moving from our original sort of 40-foot container, the city opened up to bring us into the civic center, not actually indoors, but they moved our containers into the schoolyard. And this all of a sudden gave us a visibility that we had never experienced before. We set up a collaboration with the municipality through the local library, and we have become their circular economy experts to be able to help them with all different aspects. And so while we have a 40-foot container, what we also do is work in the library to be able to talk to people, bring in our repair events. The repair events are absolutely fantastic for us because we're able to maintain all of the items that we have within our library of things, but we also have thematic events where we tell people to bring in electronics or textiles, or we have sort of an annual large repair event where we invite all of our local community, anyone working in repair, to be able to bring their skills together and really develop this culture of circularity in our community through community connection. We decided not to try and just put up a cold space where people could come in, check things out, check things in. We wanted to create a place where we could talk about it. We saw that the makerspace, which is part of the Civic Center and is in the high school, was this old woodworking shop that had really dilapidated materials and needed some, new infrastructure. And so through a collaboration with the municipality and the school, we applied for external funding together to convert the existing wood workshop into a makerspace with CNC routers, 3D printers, textile tools, the kinds that you don't want to borrow and take home, you want to use on the space there. And what we've done is we've now allowed the school to have an upgraded infrastructure during the school hours. And when the school is not using it, which means every weekend, every evening, throughout the summer vacations, Christmas holidays, our community goes in there and we have an intergenerational makerspace. And the ability to look at how can we incubate new ideas, how can startups come in and prototype using amazing technology. This has been instrumental in expanding the understanding around why we need to do this. And people learn about the library of things and then say, I had no idea this existed. How can I sign up? And so when it came to electric bicycles, for example, we saw that the public library actually had an electric bike lending program, and they were really struggling with how do they manage the maintenance, what happens if they get lost, how are they charging people, the checking in, the checking out, all of the elements that we're very used to with a library of things. And so they had a series of, I think it was 11 electric bikes, including cargo bikes, and they decided that they couldn't handle it anymore. Because anyone who's worked in the public sector and knows their local library knows that their resources are stretched to the limit already. They're doing everything they can. And so by working with us, we took over the electric bike lending program, which allows us to be able to help those who don't have an electric bike to test it out and see if they want to buy one, which changes mobility in our community. We've had people who live on their electric bikes, and when they break, they can borrow one from us while the other is being repaired, and we can also help them with that. And we're basically incubating all sorts of ideas, including a digital seed library that really promotes community resilience. And so through this, we have learned a lot. We developed the Circular Regions Hub. And if you take a look at circularregions.org, I'll put some links in the chat afterwards. You can see how we've actually been developing case studies which are now being used internationally to understand not only what we're working on, but what are all the other elements of what's going on in our community and elsewhere, so we can understand what are the barriers, what are the enablers. There are technological, social, cultural, market and regulatory barriers and enablers. And so for us, one of the key resources has been if we're able to do everything with data, and that is something that we have done from the beginning. We are clearly data-driven. Before we launched our first library of things, we decided to put out a survey to understand who thought this was important, who would be interested, what could they pay, what could they afford to pay, and what types of items did they want access to. And one fun fact that really surprised us, we had in our small community, we only have 20,000 people in our community. We had over 300 families respond, and 56% of them wanted access to party supplies, wine glasses, utensils, dishes. And so one of the questions earlier that came up was, what happens when something breaks? And of course, glasses. That's clearly a very fragile solution. So what we have is a digital platform which allows us to have really solid user agreements. And we look at the manufacturers to say, what are the items we're going to bring in? And here in Norway, we have a glass manufacturer that has a breakage guarantee. So every time one of our glasses gets broken, the user has already signed an agreement that if it breaks, they go to a specific store and they get another one for free. And so I'm thrilled to say that the same glasses that we bought nearly 10 years ago, we have the same amount and have not had to buy another one since. So how do you look at the data? How do you look at the digital infrastructure? We also worked with the city. We were asked to develop a report on not only what we were doing, but gather data on the circular economy in general in our community. What were the businesses that were interested in, enabling alternative business models and revenue streams by lending out their existing assets? Who wanted access and what types of solutions do they want access to? I'll provide a link to this report. A lot of the data is actually live data. We gathered insight on repairs and skills. What were the repair skills in our community? We learned a lot about age and gender. And one of the things that we did see clearly was that we were not doing enough outreach into the younger generation. And that was because we were focusing on the wrong social media platforms. So one of the most amazing things is we have an online digital dashboard, and I can also put that in the link later on, to look at what were the motivations and what were the reasons against sharing. And we clearly saw that women were the strongest drivers of the sharing economy, and men wanted control over their assets. So it was really a fascinating thing to look at how can we use data and understand how we can work with the municipality, share our insights also with the knowledge sector. And we've seen some amazing data points come out. We've seen that our solution supports increased emergency preparedness. This is something that we really need to look at given extreme weather coming in. When you have storms and homes are flooded and need damage repaired, they can come in and get access to the tools to be able to help rebuild these areas. We also saw that the lower a household's purchasing power, the higher their interest was in sharing. There's more data than I can share in this webinar, but I'll gladly provide you with the reports to be able to look into it. But for us, it has clearly been about ecosystem collaboration, because no singular circular solution is circular on its own. It's how you work together in the broader ecosystem. So locally, we work with consumers, repairers, the makerspace. We also have a mentorship program for local businesses to say, how can you get involved in the circular economy? We have startups coming in to get case studies developed around what they're doing. And we have a tremendous amount of tools and resources available for hubs who want to start off like us. And anyone can reach out to us at Circular Regions to say, let's enable this to happen. We also have a new industrial park in development, and we're looking at how we can incorporate the circular economy into that. How can we get them to do industrial symbiosis and maybe even set up a materials library there? We're also looking at the materials library, working with the local makerspace, because we have the tools and now we're gathering the secondary materials to say, what can we make with these? And we're also reaching out to the local newspaper on a regular basis because we need to be able to get out into the communities and also through the local shopping center. How do we get people to understand that it is about community culture and develop this going forward? And so at a local level, yes, we're talking to everybody and supporting not only our version of the sharing economy, but supporting all of the others working on it. Because the more sharing solutions you have, the more diversity of them that you have, the more you have a culture that comes together. When it comes to our global collaboration, we looked clearly at the digital solutions that were out there. And I have to give a shout out to myturn.com in America. They were the ones who started the first libraries of things. Earlier, Ranjit mentioned that there were examples in Canada, and that one there is actually powered by MyTurn, as are many of those. They're currently empowering more than 400 community libraries internationally in over 22 countries last that I looked. And that digital infrastructure is what has lowered the threshold for us to be a successful library of things. And I say successful in the sense that, trust me, this was not easy, but what we are doing is beyond just the library of things, and that's what makes us survive. But we also run into a lot of challenges. As Ranjit mentioned, how do you actually rely on volunteers? That doesn't work. You need to actually have a sustainable model. And for us, we're able to now set up through our partnership with the Circular Library Network in Iceland, and Anna was originally supposed to speak on this webinar, the ability for us to integrate these self-serve kiosk models in the Civic Center so that we can be there and develop the community, but when we're not able to be there on site, people are able to access the items that they want most access to. And what has been an amazing sort of evolution over a decade is that we have clearly seen that the data is the critical point, because data turns community behavior into evidence, and evidence is what turns pilots into policy. And so we, as our Circular Economy Hub, have now been included in the 3D Circular Project. I'll put a link to that in the chat. And it's an EU-funded project with 10 million euros to be able to look at how can we develop the next generation of educational curriculum. And we're going to be providing insight to some of their courses, which are going to be integrated into master's and PhD programs regarding the Library of Things. It's about data-driven impact in sharing platforms, Library of Things, and community reuse, to be able to explain why data is critical for circular initiatives in the social economy. We have to help them to be able to distinguish the indicators for resource optimization, because yes, we have to look at the data on examples of items loaned, utilization rates, waste purchases avoided, but also the social impact, the membership diversity, participation, skills, and inclusion. And so I could talk about this forever, but I'll end it with data is what informs policy. Policy informs the needs both of the public sector and industry and small business. And we need to develop curriculum to share these skills going forward. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Cynthia. That was fabulous. A lot of information squeezed into 13 quick minutes there. So that's brilliant. Thank you. And I think that data-driven approach that you've taken is really fascinating, and obviously a key reason behind the success that you're seeing there. I think before we go to next questions, we'll just click on, if Victoria, if you can give me back control of the slides again, please. We'll go into our next Slido survey to kick off the conversation with hopefully a little bit of fun. We'll see what comes. So if we go through there, so yeah, so we're keen to know from you guys in the audience, what's the most unusual thing you've either borrowed, reused, or lent? It can be from a circular library if you have that experience, or just in general. So yeah, please do let us know. And Cynthia, thank you for those links that you're putting in the chat there. Bikes and tents, interesting, not particularly unusual. Let's see what challenge we can have. A cake stand, that's a good one. I like that. We'll see what comes in. Steamer for the wedding dress in the chat, a paddleboard. Interesting, that's good. A tortilla press, that is an unusual one. I like that a lot. That's good. Speakers. Somebody's just written Victorian. I'm not sure if that's Victorian and outfit are meant to go together, or you managed to borrow somebody from a couple of 100 years ago. Goggles, so sporting equipment, quite a popular one. Kitchen equipment, the popcorn maker is a good one there. I like that. Boxes, moving boxes, that's a really good example, yeah, because generally they will sit in a garage after they've been used and just eventually have to be recycled rather than reused. Balloons or party stuff. Kids' clothes is a good one. Excellent. Okay, thank you. That's really good. Really nice. Some nice ideas in there. Okay, so we'll move on to final questions now. There was one that came in just as Cynthia was finishing there. A couple actually. So I guess this is a question for both Cynthia and Ranjit. What would you say is the biggest mistake to avoid? Maybe things that have kind of blindsided you a little bit in your own developments that you weren't expecting that would be good for others looking to be aware of.
Was that a question to me, Robert?
Well, both of you, I think. So Ranjit, if you want to go first.
God, we did make a lot of mistakes, and hopefully most of them. I think funding is a challenge, and maybe we would have approached it in a different way. We're a mission-locked company, so we have mission guardians on our board that represent the earth, the community, and other stakeholders. And investors don't like that clause because our mission guardians can veto certain decisions. But actually, I think that's been a blessing in disguise. You know, we're not interested in venture or capital or PE capital. Our mission is circularity. We're not a profit maximization organization. We're a behavior change organization. So yeah, we would look, I think maybe got our funding profile together much earlier than we did.
That's really interesting, yeah. Cynthia, any thoughts on mistakes made for you that would be good for others to avoid, or that you would do things differently maybe?
Well, it's interesting. There's two different levels to it. One thing that we clearly saw, I like to learn from other people's mistakes. That's something that I think we should all try and do. And so we set out to learn what was not working elsewhere. What were the challenges before we got in there? And one of the things that we learned early on was get the data. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume you know what people want access to, because we are forever surprised by that. But in the real practical day-to-day, like I volunteer there every Saturday. My husband and I, we're vested in our community. And we have different people using the system, being able to check things in and check things out. And every once in a while, you're in a rush and someone says, oh, can I just borrow it? And I'll put it into the system later. Set up your methodology, your systems, and don't skip it. Never, ever divert from that, because all of a sudden somebody forgets to check something out, and that little practicality, you end up with a drill that's gone off stray. And so one thing I just have to say to everyone is many of us are circular economy practitioners, experts, interests. Everybody needs to join or at least support their local library of things. The amount of times that I ask, are you a member where you are? If you want to support this, join, get to know the people. And if there isn't one in your community, get one started.
Thank you, Cynthia. Really strong call to action for everybody there. And I think that question of support is kind of leads on to the next actual question we have from Petra. What is important for local and regional governments to do to support the initiative? So you both mentioned you have had local regional governance support, but what more could be done, or what worked particularly well in that aspect for you? Cynthia, do you want to go, and then Ranjit can come in?
The support at first, we felt like we were banging our head against the wall because, you know, yes, you have people who are working in the public sector who are really challenged with limited resources. And what we saw was there may not be money available, but there's space available, and you can always support it. And you have to be able to say, how can we promote this and enable this space to open up in a centralized location? And even if you don't quite get it, trust that it will evolve and be open to testing if we don't test and pilot. So the cities have to be willing to do that.
Excellent. Thank you, Cynthia. Ranjit, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, some of the same comments as Cynthia. Space, local authorities, municipalities usually have. The funding profile has changed over the last 2 years as the British economy hasn't progressed. So we're looking at other ways of bringing funds to that space. So whether it's a mixture of crowdfunding or corporate sponsorship, married with some municipal funds as well. I've met with a deputy mayor of London. I complained to him that I have to deal with 17 municipalities who have 17 different contracts, 17 different ways of working. Is there not a possibility of having a central fund administered by the mayor's office? And I am seeing initiatives like that happening in other cities. In my conversations with the city of Amsterdam, they also seem to be looking at making, like Cynthia alluded to earlier, how do you connect mobility and sharing and other access points for the community?
Excellent, thank you, Ranjit. You stopped just as I was coughing there, so you caught me by surprise a little bit. Another question: what decision or action has had the biggest impact on success for you both? You probably touched on it a little bit, but is there anything, one kind of key decision that was made that has been a real success factor, Ranjit?
Well, I think I can split it two ways. Internally, we've hired great people. So we have a great team that's very committed to the mission. All of them could earn lots more money elsewhere. So that's been, I think, a key part of our success. And externally is really something, again, Cynthia said earlier, we produce impact reports which we share with the municipality. We send them monthly sales reports showing them, items borrowed, new users against existing users. So again, sharing all that data and being very open with our partners.
Thank you, Ranjit. Cynthia?
I think data, without a doubt, if we want to be able to really show the impact, and it's not just about utilization, it's the social impacts. And Rob, I saw that you mentioned that earlier. What are the social impacts of a library of things? And if you look at our case studies, we break down what are the environmental and what are the economic impacts, but the social ones are clearly one of the big aspects that we have to look at going forward. And I can definitely recommend something to everyone. We all hear about the circular economy action plan, but very few people are looking at the social economy action plan. And that should be integrated into all of these decisions to show you these other elements of what are the impacts of bringing together your community. So from policy perspective, integrate that alongside your circular economy.
Joined up thinking is always a nice idea, absolutely. Brilliant, thank you both. I think one last question for me, unless any others come in on the chat, but it's just, again, to both of you, what's next? What are the next steps for you, and where do you see potential further expansion or diversification in the next couple of years? Cynthia, if you want to go first on that.
Our hub has received quite a bit of interest. And so we're hosting people from around the world who come to our little peninsula. They take the electric ferry over from Oslo. And when we have the bikes available, we often pick them up and do bike tours, visiting all of the local areas. But we are looking at documenting all of our methodologies and creating a learning arena that allows for other communities to take our shared understanding and methodologies to be able to replicate it. And so if anyone wants to reach out about that, they can connect with me on LinkedIn or contact us at Circular Regions. We have a ton of methodologies and tools coming down the pipeline, and all of this is being written up in my new book. So that should be coming out later this year.
Nice plug there. That's good. I like it.
Thank you.
Ranjit, over to you. What's next for the London Library of Things?
I don't have a book coming out, but I hope you have lots of success with it, Cynthia. I don't know how you have time to do that. What's coming down the road? I think given our funding structure, it's all going to be incremental. We don't want to be the Amazon of libraries of things. We love to see other projects flourish. We network with lots of community libraries here in the UK and share the knowledge that we have. We have an informal sharing and repair network. So I think our success in the future is partnering with other like-minded organizations. We partner with an organization called Restart, which advocate for repair cafes. And again, how do we bring municipalities into that ecosystem? And also what we would like is, property owners in the private sector to be part of that constellation of people. Because on our own, we're not going to solve this problem. So we need all the other players as well. We may not like dealing with them, but we need to bring them into the fold and educate them and make them allies for the future.
Fabulous, thank you. It's a nice way to round up, Ranjit. I think I should just mention something that Cynthia alluded to that I should have mentioned at the start. Anna from Reykjavik was due to be joining today. She was unable. She's unwell this week, unfortunately. So Ranjit very kindly agreed to step in at the last minute to share his experiences. So thank you, Ranjit, for your flexibility there. All of the slides and the obviously the chat and the links and things will be available after the session, so you'll be able to get in touch with both Ranjit and Cynthia through the details there. Excuse me. So yeah, just some final remarks. The last couple of minutes that we have. What's next? Just some further useful links that you might be able to make use of if you're not aware or part of the CCRI community already. So please do go and have a look at the website, and within the website, the CCRI Compass there is a really we like to think nice, useful, intuitive map of all of the different types of support and knowledge that's available, and the work that the CCRI has done in various different areas as well. So please do visit that. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have any questions with anything that you see there as well. And just a quick plug for us, from us this time, we have our next webinar coming up on the 2nd of December, which is entitled Making Municipal Projects Investor Ready. So looking at the financing aspect of city and region level circular economy projects. So that's all from us today. Just remains for me to say a massive thank you to both of our speakers for your presentations and engaging with the questions so much. A huge thank you to everybody in the audience who have given us those questions and engaged with the surveys that we had. And again, as always, a huge thank you to our internal team, Victoria and all of her team for making everything run so smoothly. But no, that's us for today. I'll let you all go to lunch now and hopefully see you soon next time.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you for having me.